Happy Thursday, everybody. Come on in, grab your favorite drink, sit down, and watch a couple of people ramble on about a beautiful hockey club called the Colorado Avalanche. It is the Cluster Puck Podcast, part of the MHRT network here at Center Ice. I am Nick, and joining me is Brit. How's it going, Brit?
Hello. How's it going? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you. We can hear
Can
you
you
just
see
fine.
me?
I think the video probably will come in shortly, is my guess.
Okay.
But
Well,
we can hear you just fine. So that being said, few things that we're going to get to this week on this show. Obviously, the draft is right upon us at the time of this episode. It's going to be tomorrow, June 27th and 28th, of course. Though the Avalanche don't have much as far as an arsenal in the with the
no,
fourth
not much going on.
pick. We'll still see if there's maybe something that they can do. We're also going to talk about free agency that's going to be hitting July 1st. And we're also going to talk about a couple of things that are going to supposedly be announced in the CBA, the collective bargaining agreement that the NHL and the LPA have supposedly come to. So we'll read off what those changes will be, and then some other league-wide news, some trades and some rumors of trades, and we'll kind of give our opinions on all of it, basically. So strap in. It's going to be a great show. Before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow the MHRT network so you can get notified when shows like the Cluster Puck Podcast go live. You can do so on the various social media platforms of your choosing. And if you want to follow us, we ask that you do so at the Cluster Puck Podcast on Facebook or at Cluster Puck Avs on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. Okay, Britt. I think we start with the draft news first because that's probably going to take a good 30 seconds of time.
Yeah,
it's
you got to wonder too. We haven't really been active in drafting the last several years. We are the screw them picks. That's how we roll. But we have been very active on the draft floor, wheeling and dealing those draft picks. So it's kind of I'm interested to see how much less or more gets done without all those people together with the remote draft. They're not all standing there glaring at each other and, making eyes across the room. It's just going to be interesting to me how much less or more gets done with this remote draft, because a lot of discussion and bonds and relationships, and put a pin in that kind of conversations later for trades, happen on the draft floor. So I really think this is going to be a one and done. It sounds like they're already regretting doing this. But it'll be interesting.
And that's the hard thing, being in the hockey world and stuff. Tradition is a big thing,
Yeah.
Yep. The superstition and all that kind of stuff aside, tradition is probably the next biggest thing, obviously, with Stanley Cup and the names that are etched on and how that etching, and how there's just this little old silver shop in Montreal that has been doing it for years. That's just one.
Very hard-headed. We've always done it this way.
I think I agree with you, Britt, in that I don't see this lasting beyond this one and done try.
And I hope not, because I want to go to one. I wish I would have gone to one in Vegas so bad. That's going to be one of my biggest regrets.
Part too is the one that happened last year in Las Vegas in the Sphere. That is
a huge, that in the Landeskog Eagles game will go down in history as regrets of mine.
It was a big success, even though a lot of people had a lot of, skepticism about if it was actually going to work. It worked, and it worked well, So I think I'm right with you, Britt, where I think it's going to be a one and done. They're going to go right back to a centralized system. And you have every franchise's front office go up to make the pick. And I like the guest announcers too, like how Celine Dion.
Yeah, and it's kind of a spectacle and goofy, but also they don't need to add that much. There's a lot of people that are just as lame as me and just want to sit there and watch these people intermingle. And I guess part of the conversation was that some of them don't think that it's great for business to have all of your competitors or whatever you want, your fellow peers, seeing who you're talking to and mingling with the same people because that might, but it's like the cons don't outweigh
The pros.
the positives in this. And
Yeah.
also, like, this is a draft day. This is the best day in most NHL players' lives, like the most exciting day that many of them will ever experience. And it's like,
Mhm.
just, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's something that I really like, so I will blow its importance in
Yeah.
still
No, you're good.
existing.
But as far as the Avalanche are concerned, Britt, obviously, like I mentioned before, they don't have much. Kind of
Yeah.
like what you've said, we're kind of one of those what picks, we don't care about picks team that we only have a fourth rounder and a seventh rounder. And if you want me to be honest with you, I think those are still even in jeopardy. They might not even
Yeah.
be
Well, and
here.
the only thing that they might come in handy for beyond just drafting, a lottery ticket is we may use those on draft day when people are wheeling and dealing and stuff is moving. And that's what's good about draft day, even for teams like us, is stuff is still moving and wheels are turning. So we can still insert ourselves, but not necessarily by drafting.
Exactly. Well, and speaking of insert ourselves, that is going to be the question I will pose to you, Britt, is there any way, now keep in mind our cap that we currently have, the situation that we currently have with the Eagles up in Loveland, do you see the Avalanche in any way muscling their way into the first or probably most likely second round? Is there a way that that gets done?
I just don't think that they care to right now. I think that we're in a part, like the point in our timeline of our window cycle, like peaks and valleys, where somebody that we draft tomorrow, short of being in the top 5, where you've got a Celebrini or, I mean, even look at Bedard. You can't. They're not even going to be relevant until even Makar is at the tail end of his career. So I think next year, that's why this year seems so important, because I think next year is when we have to start really thinking about building up that pipeline again. And you'll see as we start to fall off, we'll be selling people that we love at the deadline, guys like Marchand that we worship. I hope that Makar stays an Av forever, but you got to think about that's how we'll start padding the pipeline down the road, is at deadlines, sending them off to teams with better chances as teams fall off. But I'd like to think we'll just stay good forever. I got the hiccups. I don't know why I always the
That's
hiccups on the
okay. I got a drink if you
podcast.
want to drink. Take a sip.
Oh my gosh.
um, but
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 yeah, I don't
I'm
think this year and first, second, I don't care.
yeah. No, I think I'm in the same boat as you there, where it's like maybe in the off chance Charlie Coyle for some picks if they get wild about wanting to try and get some
Yeah.
cap flexibility, but I don't quite see that really becoming the reality. I would assume if anything in a Coyle trade, it would be for a player already, because
So
like with what you said, we're kind of a win now. We have the window open. We don't want picks. We need players. So
one thing I wanted to ask you and see what your take on it was, we signed Mackenzie Blackwood to 5 years. I think we've got Scott Wedgwood signed 1 more year.
mhm.
The goalie that we have, that we just, I believe we signed his ELC, is we just he's coming over this year.
Oh, with
Mishkov.
Nabokov.
Is that Nabokov? I always want to say,
Uh-huh.
I get Russian names are not my. Do you think that he's on the table at all? He is truly spoken about like as a next Vasilevsky, according to his goaltending coaches in Russia. Do you think that that's on the table? Should we be an inch away from what we feel is or do you think that's more a deadline decision if we were to gamble that, or do you think it's completely off the
I
table?
don't necessarily want to throw him in the camp of one of the untouchables,
Hmm.
because that's probably been the Avalanche's one of their vices, besides the fact that we just don't like having picks, is that we just don't
Yeah,
have sustained
goaltending.
goaltending
We have
for more
not
than
had a
3
homegrown
years time.
goaltender.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So to answer that question, then I would say he's probably a not untouchable completely, I guess I should say, but
Yeah.
it's not likely, in my opinion,
It
that
just crossed my
he'll
mind because a year
return.
ago, I would have thought that Cal Ritchie was untouchable.
And that's exactly
And
right.
now at
But
this
then,
point, it just doesn't the more I think on it, I'm not, too pained to have lost him, and I
yeah,
understand and I agree with every decision that they made
yeah.
because
So
this should
tough,
have been a year. I just
tough decision to say for sure. And who knows? In the year, it could be he's not even with us, right? But right
yeah.
here, right now, I think it's not likely he does get touched, and I think it is going to hopefully mean that he does become that prodigal goalie that the Avalanche
Man,
have
I hope
needed.
so. I would love to cheer for a goalie wholeheartedly for more than
Exactly, and
6
like I said
months.
before, the Avs haven't had a career goaltender since Patrick Roy. I mean,
No,
that
freaking
was.
Cal Picard might be the most successful
I know
goaltender we've ever
it might
drafted.
even be Varlamov, almost 10 years ago, where it was like he
Oh,
was the closest thing you had, but even then, that didn't last for very long.
it's
So
the right goalie, the wrong time. That's really
exactly, and
we had
even when I say
him.
Patrick Roy, I know he was traded here, but he
Yeah,
still
we
felt
didn't
like a career. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
to answer that question, yeah, I don't think we need to worry about it for now. But I do want to see him get playing time with the Avs, and I actually see that promise that his coach said back in the KHL that this is next Vasilevsky. So
Yeah, and I mean, we're as Avalanche fans particularly, but as hockey people, it's hard to believe anything about a goalie, until you literally see them do it at that very moment because it's after the Georgiev experience, most people assume that goaltenders can just lose their mind in a matter of,
yeah,
days from one day to the next, but,
and that's the hardest part is we as Avalanche fans. I have to group you and I in there, Britt, because we have made these decisions too that we collectively just tend to bag on goaltending in Colorado like it's
yeah.
going out of style. And is it fair? No. Is it something that just we've come to expect considering that you have a two-time Norris and Conn Smythe winner? Is it because you have a Hart
Yeah,
Trophy and
I
Stanley
think
Cup winner and
I
Nathan
think
McKinnon?
we have tried to ride by the, like, idea that if our team is so good that our goalie only has to be decent, that's
Yeah.
fine, and it worked in 2022, but, like,
Yep.
when you think about what the Oilers have done 2 years in a row, I realize how incredibly that was a special year. I think that year is, like, totally different than any other year, and, that Francouz is underappreciated is what it
Yeah.
comes down to because you should not be able to win. You cannot win with an up
Yeah.
and down goalie. That's all there is to it. You have to have goalies stealing very important games to win.
Yep. Yeah, and that's exactly right. And that's what happened. We
Yeah.
saw in that Nashville series and in that Edmonton series, they swept those series. Keep in mind that 2024 team only lost 4 games in that postseason.
Yeah.
That's it,
It's
right?
insane.
That's total, right? So a lot of that obviously was depth and what was in front, but having serviceable goaltending was the thing. And obviously with Georgiev, the experiment where his stats were immaculate, but the team in front of him didn't give him that same padding that Darcy Kemper had,
Yeah.
or now let alone that what Mackenzie Blackwood and Scott Wedgwood have. Even though it's different, they now still are able to hold up their end of the playing field where they
Right,
might
and
they
carry it
can
makes
steal
it
a game or
easier to
two.
weather the harder times, um, and it lessens them because it's just a momentum thing, like, emotionally, so, yeah, I think that just the lows being not so low, even
That's
if the
right.
highs aren't as high.
Exactly. So yeah, all this being said, that the draft happens no matter what, and probably with a fourth or seventh round pick, who knows? You might swipe a goalie and get lucky, cash in on some future
Yeah.
superstar that we never knew. But as far as what the Avs are going to do, I think it's just going to be them kind of sitting around, not maybe having a bag of chips while they just watch, and then when the call comes in, Chris McFarland's going to be there in his pajamas and socks on his couch, calling some kid who wants to see if he wants to try his hand at hockey, and that's going to be it, in my opinion. So, going to be good stuff. But further down the road, the calendar, I should say, is free agency, Britt. That's going to be hitting
Mhm.
Tuesday, 10 o'clock Mountain Time in the morning.
Yeah.
And I preface this knowing that we just signed Brock Nelson. Jonathan Drouin is still out there. Gabe Landeskog and Nichushkin will be back for day one. What do we do? What can
I just need
Avalanche
Drouin
say?
to sign a contract. Like, please just take a league min contract and sign so that I can sleep at night. A lot of people think did you see the ESPN notification come out that said unlikely that Drouin will return?
Mhm. Yep.
And people ran away with it, but when I read it, it sounded as though the only reason their reasoning is that he's unlikely to return only because of the current cap space situation, and it's like,
Yeah.
that's not relevant to what it will be. You know what I mean? We don't know what they're gonna make room or who's sitting
Yeah.
on you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, in my heart, I feel like Duran's gonna come back, but my brain says probably I don't know, it hurts.
Yeah.
And there's
So,
a couple questionable ones.
there is, and that's exactly what I wanted to bring up with you is the UFAs that the Avalanche currently have. Jonathan Drouin, obviously, which you spoke to. I will add a couple of notes there. Um, it's hard to see a world in which he does stay just because how strapped for cash you are, unless he
But
takes that
who's
$1
gonna
million
pay him
deal.
after the season he had last year? And
Oh, and that's the
I
hard thing is of course you want him to come back, but you're going to have to make some roster moves in order for that to happen.
yeah.
So
Also, he's probably gonna be pushed into the bottom 6, so he needs to be paid like a bottom 6. But
potentially,
we know he can move up and down, and that's what makes him worth maybe being a little bit more than a bottom 6. You know what I mean?
exactly. So he was at what, 2? I believe he was at 2 million. If you're able to
2.5.
scrunch 2.5, if you're able to scrunch,
Mhm.
say, an extra millions, a little over a million somewhere, maybe that means moving Jack Drury's contract. He's at 1.7, or
Man,
saving off someone, then yeah, you can make
yeah.
it work, but you're going to have to get creative to do it. And there are going to be teams that will waive 3+ at Drouin, and that I'm sure that that's going to be a thing.
See, and that's what I keep going, but do you think that? Because 'cause I've been wondering back
I
and
feel
forth
like
on
there's
that.
at least a
Does
couple out
anybody wanna
there.
even offer him 2? Is he
My
even gonna
my
be healthy
guess
to
is
start
it's
the
not
year?
necessarily going to be cup contending teams, rather rebuilding teams like your San Jose's and Chicago's of the world,
Yeah,
that they have all kinds of cap, and it's not like they're going to go and offer him an $8 million contract, but a long enough one that it's maybe a couple years at 3, maybe 4, in order for him
you don't
to
think
now
that
he's
they're
found
also
his
wondering,
rhythm.
though, can he play without Mac?
He
He's
had
asking the same
before.
questions.
He had before he
I
went
just
to
I know,
Montreal. So
I'm just
so
hoping all the other teams underestimate him and we
that's the hope. And
are the
don't get me wrong when I'm saying this. I want him back. That guy, don't
Yeah,
don't get it mixed up. It's just hard to see a world in which they
yeah,
can make
it
that all the
is.
time happen without dropping somebody else or trading somebody else away.
Yeah,
Um, an additional couple of UFAs. Jimmy Vesey is another one. Obviously, inherited him from the New York Rangers. Didn't
yeah.
have too many games under his belt. Pretty low in the grades
Pretty
that we gave
quiet.
him. Is he one that you give that 1.2 as well and see if he flourishes? If Duran doesn't pan, or is that someone you let walk? What do you
Yeah.
think?
I don't know. He feels like such a toss up for me because I just don't he doesn't seem like he's had, just like Duran, any consistency. Um, but at least I feel like we have other off ice intangibles that we know come from Duran.
Yeah,
Like, I think that he is a really good leader, so it seems like it would end up going in Duran's favor, but I don't know.
yeah. It's that one is a tough one too, because again, he did play some, but it wasn't really noticeable most of the time. There were a couple times where he
Yeah.
was noticeable, obviously, but he's one where my door is locked, so Allie can't scream at me. I wouldn't mind just keeping the hands off of him and having him go elsewhere where he can be appreciated and
Yeah,
used.
yeah, I
So
agree.
totally difficult to say, but that's kind of the reality of these situations. Another harsh reality, Britt, that we have to face is another forward by the name of Joel Kiviranta, who is also a UFA.
Yeah.
Now, that one's going to be a lot tougher because you now have that position where he fit in for the last couple of seasons taken by both Parker Kelly and Jack Drury, both of which fine players that can take that role just fine. But for some reason, this one I'm going to have a hang up on because of how well he did.
Kibby's been like just such a like the fault. I don't know. It's always like, and you can tell Bednar leans on him too. Like Bednar trusts Kivy more than pretty much anyone on the bottom six, and he has put him out there in a lot of situations that normally wouldn't see somebody that far down in the lineup going out. So it makes me wonder if they would. I mean, they can't afford to overpay him, but someone else might. I don't know. We'll see how much he likes living in the mountains. He's gonna, because I don't know if he'll. What's he supposed to get? I don't have the
Kiviranta.
I mean, is he looking at like 3.5?
Let's see what his last was.
And he probably wants a little term.
He was a league minimum. He was a $775,000.
Oh, he was? Oh,
yeah.
So
you could make it work if you gave him that $1 million, but then you would be just done, you know?
Yeah.
And keep in mind, Britt, you have only 5 defensemen signed. Right?
He needs defensemen.
So,
we can play McCarr 28 minutes.
So, get ready for this. The 5 defensemen you actually have signed are Cale Makar, Devon Taves, Sam Girard, Josh Manson, and Keaton Middleton. You are missing
Middleton
from that
is
group.
in that.
You are missing Eric Johnson, who goes into UFA. Tucker Poolman, who goes into UFA, though he didn't see too much time, if time at all.
No, Poolman didn't play at all. I think he's LTI forever. That was like never
Probably.
touch ice again guy.
Ryan Lindgren, who potentially could have made something of himself here.
I liked him, man. More than I thought I would. And I think I've said it before about I like a guy that makes you have to think twice about everything you're doing on the ice because sometimes he crosses the line and sometimes he doesn't. You know, it's not a very gritty team anymore. Like it feels like we're just not. I don't want a dirty team, but it's nice to have someone that makes people feel a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think that's right. There is one more though. He's a restricted free agent, but this one I am very curious about your thoughts, Britt.
Give him the money.
Sam Malinsky.
Yeah, I want to lock him in.
By himself, or would you rather say give that to Eric Johnson, have him at least be there for the year to fill in a spot? What do you think?
I say Malinsky is, I think he's had his ups and downs and he's growing and he's getting locked in so that when he finally reaches that, full NHL readiness, we still have him for another 3 years. I love Sam Malinsky. I love the way he plays. I like him as a person. He's older, so he's more mature mentally already. So yeah, I want him signed long term.
Yeah, I think that would be in the ideal situation. He kind of fills that Eric Johnson void where he kind of becomes that next figure that kind of locks down the defense.
Yeah.
Once was top pair, obviously Eric Johnson, but at least can have just be that solidified, no problem, carefree third pair defense, and you're in good shape. But that is
and if we sign them for longer too, that'll bring down that AAV, so we don't have to have so much.
Exactly, and with the cap going up next year, even I mean, it'll look like peanuts by the time it's all said and done. However, that's still just 6. That's barely enough to have an entire defense. So that means 0 injury because that never happens.
Especially when you consider the inevitable injuries.
Exactly. Yeah, that never happens to us. So that's
but trade Girard, they say, just dump him for anything. Everybody wants to get rid of him when we have a very sparse defense as it is.
When you are strapped for defensemen, I don't think trading is going to be the right thing in his in our case, I should say.
Did you see
Um,
the Forever Avalanche wanting to trade like Sam Girard, Ross Colton, and Miles Wood for Bo Byram and a second round pick or something? I'm like, are you even watching the games? Like, do you? Oh, people are so weird.
people have
Would
weird,
you
weird
take Bo
tendencies.
back if it meant losing Girard? Like, do you think that Bo is more of a net positive long term than
He's he's better capable offensively
yeah?
than Sam Gerard, but these are defensemen, and you need
There may be
defensemen to
trust
do
issues.
defensive things. You already have Cale Makar and Devon Taves that can go and
Yeah,
supply goals and assists at will, right?
yeah.
So would I pull the trigger? To be honest, no, I don't think I would. I'd love to have him back. Don't get me wrong, because there was a lot of stuff that he kind of left a miniature void himself when we traded him. But
For when he was on the ice.
yeah, but just kind of if you're trying to compare it directly, I'm going to say no. I don't think I would.
Yeah.
Um, so it's tough, especially in this free agency. Where there are a lot of people. It's not going to be as big as next season's, obviously, but there are a lot of people, a lot of players, I should say, that are out there. And unfortunately,
Yeah.
where the Avalanche currently sit, they got Brock Nelson locked down. They have still their own housekeeping items that they have to address. Sam Malinsky, like you mentioned, what are they going to do with Kiviranta, Drouin?
Mhm.
Hoyle's contract is
We're
rather
seeing a lot
large.
of players, looking for, like, bridge deals and looking for one-year contracts. They're taking the shorter contracts and
Mhm.
opting to wait until free agency for when the money goes up and they know they can get more. So
Exactly.
it's an interesting couple of years.
It's going to be an interesting scenario over the next week or two to see what Chris McFarland and Joe Sakic have up their sleeve.
Mhm.
But I'm going to say don't expect the Avs to make anything big all of a sudden, unless it involves a massive trade and their cap can somehow get freed. So
Ross Colton, I think, is the main
could
thing
be.
here, and with him I don't know what the actual injury status is or if that was just some paperwork that needed to be done to, some but to me, he's kind of the big factor, and then after that, it's Sam Girard is probably
Exactly.
the other one that is a consideration if something we could not
Yep.
decline.
That might be the issue. So I think I know we kind of really hyped up free agency and stuff, but then all of a sudden all these moves started happening and you got strapped for cash very quickly. So I'm going to say in
Mhm.
this case, I don't see the Avs being much of a mover in this free agency frenzy that's going to happen on Tuesday. On at least on day one, maybe they make something
Yeah.
happen out of a trade, but I just don't see that being able to happen considering kind of how the other teams are looking at their rosters and what they're able to accomplish. I don't think they need to make those trades when they have all types of free agents that fill those particular needs. Um,
Yeah.
so gonna be tough. Gonna be tough. Um, Speaking of tough, let me kind of jump on to the next little item here. What's going to be tough is how this new collective bargaining agreement is going to shape up for the next, not this season, but the next one, where there are a few changes that are being announced, or at least expected to be announced tomorrow before the draft. I just
Mhm.
wanted to run over the big ones, Britt, with you, if I may. The one that I like the most, I will say, in this new CBA is that in the 26-27 season, you will have an 84 game season with only 4 preseason games instead of 6. I
Mhm.
finally get my wish where it's like you finally play 4 games in your division, 3 games in your conference, 2 games out of
Yeah.
conference, and it just makes sense. What
Yeah.
do you think, Britt? That smart
Mathematically.
move that's been
I mean, I like it to be evenly spread. I just honestly, I wish they would go sometimes I get thinking about it and how much better hockey would we see if they only played like 60 games and they started earlier and ended earlier and had a real summer. But yeah, and preseason like is whatever. But yeah, I like the more I can't think of the word I'm looking for. Whatever satisfies that obsessive compulsive need for symmetrical.
Yeah, that the OCD and
Yeah.
ADD and any other D, things that end in D that you can think
Yeah.
of. It does. It finally makes sense where it's like, I don't know why you had 82 and like two of your in division games you only play three times. It didn't make
Yeah.
sense. It was weird. So it's nice for them to polish off that corner of the desk, as it were, and finally,
Mhm.
come to their senses. One though that I am very curious, Britt, about your opinion is the new contract limits that are being discussed,
Interesting.
where instead of 8 years if they were with your team for an extension, or 7 if they're a brand new free agent, it's going to be 7 years if it's an existing
Yeah.
extension, and 6 years if you're a free agent signing with a new team. So shortening everything down by 1 year.
Yeah.
Do you like that move? Do you think it's weird? What do you
Um,
think?
I think would you say the intention behind it, I like the idea that it prevents teams from signing 8-year contracts knowing that there's no way that they're ever going to finish that out. And then, I mean, at least it shaves a little bit of that off. They're
Mhm.
just going to retire in LTIR. Um, I think that it kind of falls in line. I mean, even if they hadn't changed it, I think we're going to see a lot more of the younger stars demanding shorter contracts, like the Austin Matthews 4 years. I wouldn't be surprised if Connor McDavid only agrees to a shorter, not even a bridge, but like just a short-term contract. See where we're going here because they're not as not loyal, but they're not as buckled down as they used to be by their, you know what I mean, by
Mhm.
their logo and their dress. So I don't mind it. I mean, it doesn't change too much for me, but I have thought it was going that way for a while.
Sure. Um, this one's going to be an interesting one, Britt. I'm going to disagree with this. I
Ooh,
like the way it's at now. In fact, I am probably one of those weird oddballs that wish they pushed it the other direction and an extension could go
really?
10 years and a free agent can go to 9. That's, again, the only reason why, and I totally understand why they want to shave it down, but I
Yeah.
see an issue coming potentially, especially with draft cap moving around, being an
Mhm.
oddity. It just feels like they're trying to push for chaos more often.
Yeah, I mean, it feels more NBA than ever
Yes.
in the NHL.
And I am a big proponent of career players, right? Lifelongers
Yeah,
who want to be with
there's
teams and they don't have to worry about more often contracts. Does that make sense? So
is that
that's
why you,
why that's
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 why you're
why I
not in
want
on
those
my
10
Crosby
years.
train?
Say that again?
That's why you won't jump on my Crosby train?
Uh, I'm not saying I'm not jumping on it. I'm just still just going to wave you goodbye at the station is all I'm
Yeah.
gonna do. But that's the thing. It's like, so say for example, Landeskog, I would rather have him sign 2 10-year extensions,
Yeah.
the end, you know, and you don't have you only had to do it once. You had to do one negotiation with him and his career of 20 years is taken care of, right?
Yeah.
Versus every 6 years, so 3 times or whatever, you have to go back in there, re-extend, and even so, they wouldn't maybe take that full 6 years, 6 or 7 years, and it just becomes this game.
On the
I
player side, you have to think that they probably, I mean, it's gotta be real. I don't know if the inflation has changed so much faster. Like, if McKinnon had signed a 10-year, the market value changes so fast right now.
It
McKinnon
does.
would, like, just be finishing up that 2nd contract or his first that whatever, not his ELC, but his first. Could you imagine if we were only paying him, like, 6.5, whatever we were paying until, like, last year? So I don't know if
Mhm.
that's something that's been taken into account, but everybody's gonna find a way to get their money in
Oh,
the long
sure.
run.
And that's, I mean, if it, since this seems like it's something that's going to happen, obviously shorter terms, it's not the end of the world. Nothing
Yeah,
is going to make any massive change other than more often you're just going to have bigger free agent frenzies like this season, like next season.
yeah. I
And it's
do
going
wish
to
that they
cause
would
for
give like a
more
little bit more incentive to sign with the team you're on. I don't think that that 1 year is
potentially.
really like. What if they made that gap bigger? What if a new team could only sign them to like 4 years, and you could
Oh,
sign,
that'd be
or you
way
could do
wild.
a 10 year. You could do a 10 year with the if you re-sign versus 8 year or seven if you don't. You know what I mean?
Oh,
I wish there
sure,
was just more
sure.
incentive to love and be loyal, and
Maybe kind of
like same with
best
the
of both
franchise
worlds.
rule.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like I'm a
I see what you're
huge
saying.
believer in if you get one person that you drafted and raised that doesn't go against the cap, like you know what I mean, that kind of stuff,
Yeah,
to just try to cultivate longevity in
sure.
like fandom. I don't know.
Could be.
But
Maybe that
I
is,
always
but
thought that it's so funny that we have to put in so much work saying the 7 or 8 years when it's just not that enticing.
I
You know what I
know.
mean? Like, they could have just left that
That's
out for what it
and a lot of players now are starting to kind of understand that you don't need to always do that, and because they are starting to kind of catch wind of, hey, if I just keep my terms shorter, I
Yeah,
can command more money further down the road to whoever is the highest bidder. And maybe that's not
yeah.
your team. That's not something I personally enjoy. I like kind of the, I don't want to call it indentured servitude, but the commitment to the team that you that you originally were
But
with or that
then,
you
yeah,
fall
they
in love
also
with.
have the safety of if you get hurt, you still are getting paid for the next 5 years. Like, you know
Yeah,
what I mean? You're still
yeah.
gonna have so I don't know. I guess we'll see.
So tough to say, but again, with this changing, obviously it's just a year shorter. Like I said, not
Mhm.
the end of the world. It's going to be okay. It just, to me, I think is going to just cause more chaos more often. It's the same chaos,
Yeah.
the same free agency chaos that we're used to,
Feels
just
like
going to happen more. Yep.
yeah,
So interesting things. Additionally, they said that there's going to be the new draft rights standardization. You can keep all your drafted players until 22, even if they move
yeah,
leagues. That's a big
yeah,
one. That's going to be very, very beneficial to a lot of player or teams that they can't get you now, but if you just waited that extra year or
yeah,
two,
yeah.
so now up to 22
That's
years.
enough time to get you, like, through college,
Oh yeah.
graduate college.
Yep, exactly. So I think that extra year, and regardless if you move from CHL, say, to NCAA, whatever, it carries,
Yeah.
which I think is also really,
Or
really
finish
nice.
out a Russian contract.
Exactly. Um, it is going to be outlawed to have a deferred salary, so you can't have deferred payments for a lower cap hit. What do you think of that one?
And I just don't like it feels like we never discussed that until randomly Carolina had some, like, total shenanigans
Mhm. I
come
don't
up.
think it's been that big of a thing, but I'm guessing it's just kind of
No,
crossing
I
T's and
think that
dotting
they
I's more than
found
anything. Like,
yeah.
I haven't seen really many people do that other than, I think,
What is that
signing
Shohei
bonuses.
Ohtani thing is that was his gig,
Yeah,
wasn't it? Is he had it
that's his
super
big shtick. Yeah, is that now signing bonuses, I don't know, does that count with signing bonuses if it's not salary? That's
I
maybe the only
don't
workaround, and we'll get to that one in just a second. Speaking of signing bonuses, that's gonna be part of our housekeeping items. Wanna talk to you about that one. Additionally, massive playoff bonus increase for the Stanley Cup playoff pool is almost doubled in
yeah,
size. That's
doubled.
going to be great. Um,
Mhm.
Player benefits expanded with health coverages, such and such. Let's see. You no
I've
longer
heard
have
that
to
the
have,
healthcare for NHL players is absolutely horrific, which is something that just blows my mind because of all things that you think we'd provide people that would have been the first thing to take care of would be to make sure that their bodies are taken care of after they finish abusing them for however long. It just blew my mind that they're awful and it's expensive and it doesn't cover their families. Like it's just
that's
wild to
crazy.
me.
And speaking of blowing my mind, here's another one. Watch this. Dress code freedom. The suits and ties when you go in and out of games. Britt, did you know I was today years old when I learned that that was even a code to begin with? I thought players were
It's
choosing to do this already.
I think
So
that most of them will still do it. I think that
I
it's
think so
just
too.
there's some coaches that are so much more, they're probably just, like, straight up calling out is it Lou Lamoriello that won't let him
Euro with
have a
his
beard, makes him shave
can't have
to
a
make his,
beard, can't have different hairstyles, has to be neat. Ugh.
so I don't know if they're trying to specifically eliminate something because I don't think that the other teams are s I think the guys like an excuse to get dressed up most of the time, so it'll probably go on a team by team basis where they have a mutual agreement, but if somebody doesn't want to, they don't have to now
Yeah.
by
Yep.
law.
So that one was an interesting one that I didn't even know was
Yeah,
code. I had no idea. And
Dustin
then
Byfuglien, somebody gotta let him know.
no
Vander Kane's
kidding,
now,
no kidding. Um, oh, here's another good one here before we get to the biggest one of all. Each team must now carry a full-time e-bug, an emergency backup goalie,
interesting.
instead of just finding some,
My time to shine.
I know it's like you can now
This is
have
how we
that as
announce
an
my exit
actual
from the
job.
podcast.
You can be an e-bug, and boy howdy, would I be honored to still have you as a co-host if that were the case.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's cool too because depending on how it works, somebody is always going to either get a really awesome experience for a year or it could take some time off of our regular goaltenders by taking shots and practices and stuff. Because I know that there are goalies that take practices or take shots, excuse me, because it's a lot of shots taken in NHL practice. But you might get some looks at dudes that you never, you know what I mean? If they're there all the time and you see them regularly, who knows what. I'm just waiting for the one that's like, "We our e-bug, we, just kept him up forever."
Yeah, could be. Okay, and the last one in the CBA, probably the biggest one of all, is going to be that there's going to be a new playoff cap mechanism that closes the LTIR loophole
Huh.
that many teams have been using for the last handful of years to finally get
Mhm.
stacked teams in the playoffs. It's going to, in my opinion, bring a whole new slew of issues that come up
It's gonna
just
be a
because of
freaking
it,
shit show.
just because of the mechanics that are going to surround it. There's a
Yeah.
lot of details and it's going to be very complicated. However, it does take care of the problem that you had initially of you just put the guy, you time a surgery correctly, have him miss the rest of the season, and
Evander
miraculously,
Kane is like they've
he-
opened that investigation back up, and it sounds like they're gonna use him to make a point that people need to stop dicking around with it because
yeah,
they're not he,
well,
there's a good explanation, but he basically chose to have a knee surgery, like, at a different time than he needed to after
mhm,
having his original surgeries in order to put him back on time. So I don't.
yep. So there's obviously going to be something that they're going to announce. They didn't have it quite um, spelled out, so we're probably going to find out soon what that is. Oh, Britt, you're muted. Hang on. Let's see. Once you put your headphones in, you muted. Let's see. No, it still shows you're muted. It was once you put your
Oh
headphones in.
no,
There you go. There
sorry.
you go. Okay, so go ahead and say what you were going to say, Britt.
I don't remember what I was going to say. So lucky you.
Um, but when you did mention Evander Kane, that obviously we'll get to that piece of news as well in the housekeeping items. But again, this does take care of the problem, but I do want to know how they're going to address these other problems that it is going to cause. Because obviously there's going to be situations where it's like, well, he actually was injured, but now we
Right.
can't play him. He's,
Or
so
he
what
anticipated
is it
feeling better sooner than he did. Or there
exactly?
was a
So
setback. Gabe Landeskog had how many setbacks? Just
exactly, right? So it's going to be interesting just to see what their proposed change is. If it's maybe you only are allowed a certain percentage of your cap, so you can't bring everyone back, but maybe one or
yeah,
two.
they've talked about
You know,
when playoff time comes only being able to play, like to be able to roster a cap compliant roster. So then it's like, okay, so if we attain these people during the year, that meets the a cap compliant roster. So if we get people during the year in order to get through injuries, then at the end of the year, we have to like make people sit that should be playing. I mean, it's
exactly. Yep.
So all the worst case scenarios end up in really good players not playing in the playoffs, and that should be their biggest nightmare.
And that's going to be the interesting thing. It's like, yeah, you took care of the problem, but you're going to cause a couple of more, and I want to see how that is going to be resolved. Because I'm hoping they've actually thought it through a good chunk, so that those
it's going to cost them money in the long run. So I think that's what'll keep them.
Yeah.
Keeps them doing.
We'll just have to see what happens there. But yeah, that is going to be addressed in this new CBA. So going to be very interesting there. Okay. Last bit of housekeeping news. I did want to go over all the latest transactions that happened since the last time we spoke. Let's start in the division, shall we say, Central Division. Jamie Benn signs a 1-year, $1 million contract with an entire ensemble of signing bonuses that he can get paid at a later year. That goes against
Taze and Ben, both with these contracts. You get paid $65 bajillion if we win the Stanley Cup, is what it comes to.
So I don't know how to necessarily feel.
I don't know. Apps just don't really do signing bonuses like that nearly as often, or like to the extreme like that. So I don't know if that's something that we're missing out on, but I feel like I don't know. I hate Jamie Benn. I wanted him to retire and go away.
Well, the good news though, Britt, is that it still does strap Dallas even more so than the Avs. Yeah. So that means they're probably going to have to get rid of some players, especially if their names are still being thrown out for people like Ekblad and Ehlers and Marner. And it's like, you're going to have to really
you're going to get Marner and Mikko.
Yeah, it's like you have less than $1 million in cap space.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to get rid of a lot. And keep in mind, there are some salary caps or salary dumps that they are going to have, like your Matt Dumbas and your Lyubushkins.
And they're players that they played often, like roster leaned on and actually played real minutes. So it's not like it's just trying to get rid of people that are taking up cap space and not doing anything.
Yeah, that's right. Riley Smith. Sorry, I was keeping it in division, but then I just quickly wanted to add this one here. Riley Smith, 1-year extension with Vegas with $2 million. Yeah. That seems fine. I've always liked him there to begin with, so I'm happy for him there. Okay, the biggest one out of in the division-ness, as you were, is just I have a new neighbor here in Utah, Britt. His name is JJ Peterka. Utah was able to not only make a trade with Buffalo to get the RFA JJ Peterka, but sign him to a 5-year, $7.7 million contract in exchange for Michael Kesselring and Josh Doan. The
Josh Doan kind of made me sad. I don't know.
Well, you should see all of my friends.
Is it bad? God. Okay.
Oh, they are.
Some people are pretty nonchalant about it. I'm like, I thought he was like.
It's kind of split half and half, honestly. A lot of them didn't want to see Doan leave. I know the other half didn't want to see Kesselring leave. They both have a lot of promise and a high ceiling. However, the better player right now for Utah is Peterka. Yeah. Right? He's a 30-goal scorer, 68 points, and he's only 23. You know.
And all like. I'm happy for them and all, but can somebody that's not in our division or our conference just get better?
Kidding.
The whole entire the peak of the NHL is all just the Central Division, and then you got Edmonton, the Panthers. Mm-hmm. I mean, it just feels like the Central and then the West Conference. What are they doing over there in the East? Like,
I don't know. My question is, what are they doing in Buffalo?
All the best teams.
Allie and I went through the 2021 Buffalo Sabres team, and that
Did
team
you
alone
do
could
it?
have won. That could have fed families with how many times they would have won Stanley Cups.
Oh my God. I
So
went through and looked at
it's
the trades that they've traded away, like the people that have the successes after they
it's
left.
so sad to see what that roster looked like, and all of those got traded away.
And
JJ
how
Peterka, obviously, the
embarrassing
Mammoth being
that.
the latest.
Yeah.
So the funniest comment that I saw out of that, though, was the NHL, posted about the trade and said, hey, do you think the Mammoth have a shot of making it into the playoffs? And one of the comments just read, oh, a former Sabre getting traded to a brand new team. Just start the parade already. Start the Stanley Cup parade, which I thought was pretty funny considering that's exactly what it is with Florida. So pretty funny.
It's crazy because we draft a lot of these players. So we can't draft. It feels like the Avs sometimes can't draft for shit, but God.
Yeah.
They're drafting them. They just abandon them. It's like you got the harder part down.
It's crazy what Buffalo does, and then just
There's no saving them.
Gets rid of them when they're just about to hit their greatness. It's just I can't believe it.
Is it Kevin Adams that they're was that he the one that did the press conference? I think it's Kevin Adams. One of those GMs up there. So embarrassing. Did you hear him where they asked specifically about Kesselring and somebody being in Peterka. No, they asked about Peterka being traded and somebody else being traded. And he said that somebody else was not on the table and then just avoided the whole entire question.
Yeah.
And didn't address Peterka. And so he basically announced it.
And it was kind of like a big F you on, don't let the door hitch on the way out type feel. So clearly something happened there, but Utah just becomes the benefactor of it. And like you said, the Central just continues.
Their roster is getting scary.
And keep in mind, I don't think Utah's done. They still have almost $15 million.
And I just asked you last week, who do the Sharks knock out when they become good? Because I think
hopefully soon. Hopefully soon.
So you got Utah and Sharks. They're who are they pushing out?
And Anaheim. Don't forget Anaheim. They're probably now with Quenneville and now with their oh my gosh, new assistant head coach, former with the Edmonton Oilers. I just lost his name. I had it, then I lost it, but they just got a new assistant head coach, former NHL head coach. Anaheim's also going to be a name that's going to be making a big move. Obviously, Chris Kreider being traded there last week.
Look through their roster, and it's wild how really not bad it is.
Yeah, and they're still up there for Mitch Marner too. They're going to go after a lot of big guys, and they're going to be another team to keep an eye on. Anaheim's been missing the playoffs for too long, and so they're we're done. We're done rebuilding. We're going to be here.
Supposedly, they're still fighting for Marchand, which Marchand is. I think he's really happy in Florida, but we'll see. It's interesting.
That's right. Okay. Additionally, Andre Burakovsky gets traded to the Chicago Blackhawks. And I unfortunately know kind of why, considering
every time you hear his name, it's thinking about that person that you loved in high school and you thought you'd be with forever. And
that's kind of how it feels.
It's a sweet memory, but you get why it wasn't meant to be.
But you get why. So
it just
hopefully he finds new footing there, maybe. But unfortunately, he's back in your division, so it's oh great, now he's going to score.
We only have to worry about him once every 7 to 8 games, which should only add up to about once every time we see him.
So he'll score once every year.
He'll snipe the shit out of something, but other than that, we should have got
there you go. Trevor Zegras gets traded from Anaheim to Philadelphia, closer to his hometown in New York City. I don't really know.
The kids and shit with his new Russian buddy. I think that's what the support was, and you got to wonder. Did the Flyers?
I can't help but wonder, because obviously Rick Tocchet being the new head coach there, I can't help but wonder if that's going to be a match made in either heaven or hell.
Exactly.
Depending on how it's going to go. He's either going to just really soak up what Rick Tocchet has, and just flourish.
And it'll probably make or break the success of this little boost, this little jump off that
they've kind of got going right now. Yeah, but it's going to be an interesting jump off point. Fresh start for Zegras.
It's obviously weird fit though. Like
The-
fans wise, like
It is because Trevor Zegras, despite being a New York City kid, he always had Cali vibes. You know what I mean?
Totally Hollywood. So
Katie was very Hollywood.
I haven't really looked in to see how the fans have taken that in, because they traded who was it for? The P. Start with P.
It was Ryan Poling.
So important, but not like gut. I mean, there's
and he again could develop into something. You never know. But I think what Anaheim was doing more than anything was just trying to get as much cap space as they could.
Yeah.
Obviously, Kreider coming in, that was going to take a hit, so they had to kind of re-level that, is my guess, to see if they can now take a couple of swings for some big free agents and have a brand new team entirely next season.
I just hope that the Flyers embrace him and that they can get the vibes going to where he can revamp his career a little bit. I just feel so bad sometimes when I think that he's kind of the forefront of the new NHL player that isn't like totally
all the old heads not liking him because he does different things.
And,
he's more charismatic than the league usually has.
Yeah, and it seems like what's the coach's name? Crony. The one from the Eagles. Crony?
Cronin?
Yeah, Cronin. I always want to say Crony.
Cronin, yep.
Cronin may have kind of crushed the life out of him. So hopefully, and this kid on what's the Flyers kid? Mishkov? Is that Mishkov?
Mishkov,
He is known for giving zero shits about what anyone thinks when he wants to do a Michigan, whether it's the appropriate time or place or so maybe they'll make some sweet music together or they'll look like complete fools. But I hope it's fun.
There you go.
It does not feel like Flyers stuff at all.
It's going to be an interesting match. Like I said, it's either going to work or it's not.
My kid is excited that he gets to fully go in on gritty stuff, though. Now he feels like he's now because he's following Zegras.
We may need to do just an entire episode full of just hot takes around the league. I'll just give you this one. I hate gritty.
Do you see my kid
I
just
hate
like
him so
gritty?
Much. I have a couple of friends that they're big Flyers fans.
Yeah.
And they send me any gritty content they can just to annoy me.
Oh, that's annoying. There was some
I'm gonna make a lot of enemies by saying that first. I know I'm just pissed off an entire section of people by saying that. I'm sorry, but I can't stand him.
It's fair. I think it's fair. And they went too hard on it for like 2 or 3 years to where now it's like just chill and it'll become funny again at some point. Like when the ESPN commercials, do you remember the ones with the mascots that would
Oh yeah.
There was some good gritty ones there, but you can't overdo a good thing.
Yeah, that's right.
Talking to you, Flo from Progressive, that I have to watch billions of commercials every hockey game.
That's right.
But yeah, I'm curious to see if that will be good immediately or not good, because that's weird.
It's going to be.
I forgot about Rocket.
It's going to be consequential either way, whether for good or for bad. And there's not going to be just a stagnant.
One of the best.
It's not just going to be a stagnant, like, oh, he just kind of was there. No, it's going to be he either the team just crumbles or, because something doesn't work between him and Rocket or him and Michkov or whatever, or they flourish and do very well together.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see. Okay.
Which it'll be interesting too with the Canada trials ending. Carter Hart's contract ended already, didn't it? I was going to say,
have no idea.
There might be a Carter Hart on the market. Because who's their goalie right now? Sorry.
Sam Erson.
I was thinking that maybe Carter Hart was coming back to him, but I was wrong. I think that his contract expired.
Fedakov is also the other goalie. The Minnesota Wild traded Freddie Gaudreau to the Seattle Kraken. So Seattle gets rid of Burakovsky and gets Gaudreau. This just kind of feels
that
like
Rossi trade.
What's that?
I thought you were going to announce a Rossi trade here.
No. I
was like, geez,
I don't really usually have Twitter open when I'm doing podcasting. I probably should just in case something does happen. But, that one just seems like a healthy trade. Get Gaudreau a new scenery to a team that's still trying to figure themselves out. So maybe he develops into something there. I did like him when the Wild came to play the Mammoth. We go to those games, and I quite like this play style. So hopefully that does fit Seattle around the board. But the last one I want to talk about is Evander Kane being traded to the Vancouver Canucks for a 4th round pick in this year's draft.
Yep.
Was this due to a crash out in that Stanley Cup final game 6? Was this because he didn't play the entire time and there's a lot of that controversy surrounding him? What do you think?
This is because the Edmonton Oilers need cap space and they hate him. They hate his face and everything about him. So, yeah, it was pretty easy to let go because when he's been good for them, boy, did they love him when they got him and he had changed and it was reinvented his game, blah, blah, blah. But my God, the end of that series was truly one of the most embarrassing things.
I don't think he was in that handshake line at the very end, was he? He was in the
doesn't.
Room. Yep. So, I mean, the pictures will just show that according to historical photos, he was never there.
So then, since you have a toxic player who has struggled in every team he's ever played in, why not, as a team that has had serious, very public, loudly public issues with your locker room, take him on and then say, I was trying to look up the quote about when they took him on. They think that he's matured a lot in the last few years and they feel that he brings something to their team. And it's like, are you seriously delusional?
Perhaps on some off-ice antics, some being the key word there, but he still carries an entire slew of other problems with him.
I just
want his playability, which is still good. Obviously, the prior season, not the one that just concluded, but the season before that, he had some pretty impactful time and plays there. But is it worth the price of admission to watch the circus that comes with it? You know,
and I don't
mean?
think that there will be any ramifications that come from this LTIR investigation. SDPN worded it wonderfully that because it's Landeskog was investigated and Kane was investigated. And they said, but we reserve the right to reopen this if we come back later. So now they came back and opened it. And they speculated that the NHL doesn't plan to do something to like suspend him or kick him out. But this is them having a good chance for someone that they absolutely despise. They hate Evander Kane. He is always causing them troubles. They can make an example of him to tell teams to stop, that they're serious. You know what I mean? So, but could he be suspended some of next year or some? I don't even know what could come of that if they did find that and I don't know if that's on him or the team or the doctors where that scheduling a knee surgery comes into question, but maybe he's not even going to play next year.
Could be.
Maybe he's hit by a bus.
And all it costs Vancouver, if everything clears, then Vancouver got a great player, though there's a lot that comes with it. And it only cost them a 4th round pick. So it's a big risk for Vancouver's side, but nonetheless, Evander Kane does now reside with the Vancouver Canucks. So be interesting to see what comes out of that investigation as well, but only time will tell on that one. Okay, so that being said, Brit, that does take care of all the topics we wanted to talk about. Obviously, draft, which Avs won't have much of a hand in. Free agency, which Avs might not have a big hand in.
They said at the end of the year, if they could run back the exact same team again, they would, and I believe them. So I think we're just doing everything.
The season with Landeskog, Nichushkin, Blackwood, Wedgwood. I think why not? So I totally agree. But that's going to be. I think that's going to take it all the way to the ground, Britt. I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to add before we wrap up.
No, just remind everyone in your prayers that night that Duran signs. Don't forget to ask God for Duran.
When something does happen with the Avs, just pray for Britain and my well-being. Just because we may not be doing well, or we may be just heart racing.
I'm still standing behind saying that this offseason has been so much more peaceful, though, without the limbo stuff. So I'm.
Oh, yeah. You betcha.
Not being totally ungrateful.
There you go. Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining us on this episode of the Cluster Puck Podcast. Again, if you like what you saw, don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow the MHRT network so you can get notified when shows like the Cluster Puck Podcast go live. You can do so on the social media platforms of your choosing. And if you want to follow us, we ask that you do so at the Cluster Puck Podcast on Facebook and at Cluster Puck Avs on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. With that being said, round 1 of the NHL Draft is tomorrow at this time of recording. Who goes first? Who are the Islanders going to take? Who are the Sharks going to take it to? Chicago at 3.
The guy that they want them to take. Oh my gosh, Matthew
Schaefer.
I have to get this in. Matthew Schaefer. If anybody has a minute to go watch the Matthew Schaefer documentary that came out, it's like 36 minutes long. I don't know if it was like Sportsnet or Elliot Friedman's in it. Matthew Schaefer is truly one of the most incredible human beings I have ever seen as an athlete. So I'm just seriously incredible. I hope that I want the world for him, but
there you go. And maybe the Islanders do too.
Oh,
so
man, I love him.
What happens with the top 5 picks? Obviously, there's been a lot of scramble as of late with the workouts. Free agency is coming up. Obviously, by this time next week, there's going to be a lot of movement there. Definitely trades involved, I'm sure. So we will try to cover as much as we can next week. But until then, sit down, buckle up. It's going to be a wild, wild ride. So have a great weekend. Take a deep breath. And as always, go Avs go.
Fast lane when I pass in the street. Bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle.